Hi there. Looking for help for homework 7.1? You are in the right place. Let's begin. This is the homework for Math Excel. First question, this is all inverses, not the regular ones. We already did regular trig functions. Now we're talking about their inverses. So as you can see, the very first question right here is saying, hey, what's sine inverse or arcsine 0? As I said earlier, arcsine or sine inverse. Either way is fine. So the question's asking me sine of what angle equals 0? And handy dandy, unit circle comes in very handy. I'm looking for 0 as the y-intercept, as the y-coordinate. So 0 for y-coordinate. I see a 0 here and I see a 0 here. Why am I looking for y-coordinate? Because we're looking for sine values. And you'll most likely see two answers. One will be the correct one will be the incorrect one. How do I know this is incorrect? Let's review that real quick. For sine inverse and tangent inverses, the restrictions are first and fourth quadrant. Or in other words, x is between pi over 2 and negative pi over 2. Now pi over 2 is right here. Negative pi over 2 is basically going 90 degrees but in clockwise direction. So we would end up right here. So our zone is pi over 2 to negative pi over 2. As you can see, this is the first and the fourth quadrant. So based off of the restrictions, I get two answers. 0 degrees, 0 radians, or pi or 180. And again, pi and 180 are going to be ignored just because they are not the right quadrant. And our answer is 0 as well. So if you plug in just a 0, that should work. All right, let me move on to 3, sine inverse. So sine again, -1. I'm looking at the theta value where sine equals -1. And -1 is down here. In fact, there's only one -1. Yeah. So the answer is clearly 3 pi over 2. But when you plug in 3 pi over 2, it's going to give you error because instead of going the longer route to 3 pi over 2, we're actually looking at getting to 3 pi over 2 via this route. So that means the angle is going to be negative. And this clearly is going 90 degrees negative. So you can also call this angle negative 90 degrees or negative pi over 2. So instead of putting in 3 pi over 2, we're going to plug in negative pi over 2. And that should work. Oh no, I put it in the wrong place. I think it's this one. Negative pi over 2. All right. Let's look at one cosine. Cosine inverse -1. So cosine of what theta equals -1. Cosine is the x coordinate. So let's look for -1 in the x coordinate. -1 in the x coordinate. And that's right there. Do we see any other answers? No, not really. So it should be pi. And again, pi doesn't matter whether you're coming counterclockwise or clockwise, you still end up in pi. Half a circle is half a circle. And your answer should be pi here. What else? Let's say we have sine inverse root 2 over 2. So I'm looking at sine of what theta equals root 2 over 2. Sine, looking for y coordinates. Root 2 over 2, I see one here and I see one here. Clearly this one is going to be ignored because it's not in first or fourth. And clearly we're going to pick this one, and this one is shorter route, positive angle, pi over 4 it is. Alright, what else? Well, let's look at tangent inverse root 3. So tangent of what theta equals, not negative, positive root 3. And I lost it. There it is, positive root 3. Tangent values are the ones in green. Tangent, usually you'll see answers across. If you see one in the first, you'll see it in the third. If you see a tangent value in the second quadrant, you'll see a similar value in the fourth quadrant. Anywho, we are looking for positive root 3. Now, what are the restrictions for tangent? That's all we need to be aware of. Tangent is also restricted to first and fourth, so we're clearly going to just pick this one, pi over 3. So just keep in mind, if you end up with something in the fourth quadrant, let's say you end up with 7 pi over 4, MathXL will not take 7 pi over 4. You need to actually get the negative value of the same angle, which means going clockwise. And the simple way for that is get the reflection of the same angle in the positive quadrant. So this is the reflection of 7 pi over 4. The 7 pi over 4 can also be written as negative pi over 4 or negative 45 degrees. So all these four values, negative 45, 315, negative pi over 4, 7 pi over 4, all these four refer to the exact same point. So just be careful of that. If the answer is in first or second quadrant, you shouldn't have to mess with it. If you end up with 3 pi over 4, then 3 pi over 4 is just fine. All right, that's the bottom line here. And let me do one of these type. Okay, let's look at cosine inverse cosine 7 pi over 10. Now, when you see a function and its inverse together, this is the composition of the inverse and the function itself. You can go ahead and cancel them, and most likely this might be the answer. The only thing I need to check for is that, is this in the right quadrant, acceptable quadrant for cosine? Now, cosine's acceptable quadrants are first and second only. Why? Because the inverses are restricted from 0 to pi over 2, which I explained in the lesson earlier, what the reasons for restrictions. So I'm like, let's see where's 7 pi over 10 at. I don't know which quadrant it's in, but I do know this is 0, this is pi, that's pi over 2, this is 3 pi over 2. Now I need to get to 7/10 of pi, which means take pi, split it in 10 parts, and get to the 7th part. 10 is an even number, so when I split 0 to pi in 10 parts, 5 of them will be here, and then 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And 7 is clearly 7 pi over 10, the 7th part. So you can say this is in the second quadrant. Now, second quadrant is acceptable for cosine. Second quadrant is acceptable, so 7 pi over 10 is the right answer. Okay, let's do one more. All right, let's start this one. We have cosine, cosine inverse, 4/5. Cosine inverse and cosine cancel. When we have these values, domain and the range are flipped in this case, and make sure that your answer is between 1 and -1. A 4/5 is basically 0.8, and 0.8 is clearly between this. A 4/5 should be an acceptable answer. When you cancel these two, we end up with 2.1, and that's clearly not between 1 and -1. This is not going to be an answer. You'll have to pick. It is not defined. All right.